Hey everyone, and welcome back to the SCREENY. When it comes to collectibles, there's no bigger market than war memorabilia. Swords, uniforms, medals, letters, you name it. If it's seen a battle, then it's probably worth some money. The rarer it is, the higher the value. And that's something that the boys on Pawn Stars are into massively. It's not every day that you see some of these items. In fact, most of the pieces that you're about to witness are complete one-offs. So it's not surprising that they fetched a pretty penny. Join us as we take a look at 7 of the most valuable war memorabilia items on Pawn Stars. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos about your favorite movies and TV shows. D-Day battle plans and after-action reports.
These kinds of documents are going to be in places like the National Archives because it's top secret. You weren't supposed to bring this stuff home.
D-Day is one of the most well-known events in history, taking place on June 6, 1944. 160,000 Allied troops landed on France's Normandy coast to take action against the advancing German forces. An enormous amount of people lost their lives that day, so the rest of the world could carry on living in peace. One gentleman walked into the show with some incredibly rare items, battle plans and after-action reports from different battalions fighting on that day. Eric wanted $6,000 for the drawings that his grandfather, a war veteran, had left to him. Containing drop zones and other detailed attack plans, the documents were interesting, but were they valuable? Rick was really intrigued by them, recognizing the importance of the item. "It's really unique," he mused. "I'm just trying to figure out when they were printed." Rick hopes that the plans were made before the day and not just retellings of what happened afterwards, so he searched for the date. Mark, a museum administrator, came down to take a look and give the guys an idea of what the maps might sell for. Rick was preparing to hand over some serious cash, but because of the cheap ink, it soon became clear that he wouldn't be able to sell them as he couldn't display them. The true value of them was astronomical, and the boys pointed Eric in the direction of the museum. World War I Surgeon's Kit.
This is probably used for removing fingers. These are retractors right here. These are for literally when they do the incision to pull the skin back.
When it comes to war memorabilia, we've all seen the medals and military jackets. That stuff is nice and all, but it's just not that interesting anymore. That's why Rick's interest was piqued when someone brought in a genuine World War I surgeon's kit. Who doesn't want to look at something that probably saved hundreds of lives? Containing over 200 pieces, including amputation saws and bone cutters, Bob said that it belonged to his grandfather, but was just gathering dust. If he didn't get joy from it, then maybe someone else could, and he could walk away with a hefty sum. Bob's asking price was $10,000. Both Rick and Corey could appreciate the value of the item and gave it a thorough inspection. "I dig it," said the boss. Despite the owner's evaluation, Rick wasn't about to shell out all of that money, instead offering him $2,000. It was an uncomfortable viewing as Bob's asking price was ground down. He walked away with $2,800 while Rick was laughing. World War II military bicycle.
I wouldn't be surprised if you got $5,000 for this.
Okay.
What'd you pay?
I gave her $500 for it.
You don't see one of these every day, that's for sure. The bike dated all the way back to World War II. Lexi had always taken an interest in her great-grandfather's bike that had stayed in the family garage for as long as she could remember. Her mother gave her permission to sell it and use the funds for college, but Lexi didn't really know what she had. Rick appreciated the item, which turned out to be foldable. Chum Lee tried to get Rick to part with some more cash, and eventually the pair shook on $500. When Rick got an expert in post-deal, it was discovered that the bike was actually designed to be used by paratroopers, who would jump out of planes and then use them and then ride into the combat zone. The bike was the best of its kind the War Pro had ever seen, and he valued it at $5,000. Rick promptly ran after the previous owner and offered her more cash. We're just kidding. Of course he didn't, but wouldn't that have been nice? Anti-war leaflet.
This is easily a $12,000 piece.
Okay.
Told you.
Stewart rocked up to the shop hoping to sell a signed copy of Martin Luther King Jr.'s anti-Vietnam War speech. The entire script was printed alongside a full-page picture of the late doctor. Stewart was hoping to get rid of it and buy different Vietnam War collectibles with the cash. Rick admitted that it was pretty cool to see a piece of history signed by one of the most influential men of the 21st century, but was that enough to make him splash out the cash? Stewart himself pointed out that it was a rare item, as Martin Luther King was assassinated shortly after the war began. A similar item sold a few years ago for $11,000, but Stewart thought it would be more valuable than that. He didn't have any authentication paperwork, so Rick brought in a third party to make sure that the signature was the real deal. Principal authenticator Steve Gard from Beckett Services gave the item the once-over and was more than impressed with the condition. Reassured that he wasn't about to buy a fake, it was time for Rick to get down to business. The pair shook hands on $10,000. Rare Civil War era photograph.
The Civil War was interesting because that was the first war that we photographed.
Okay, so it may not exactly be war memorabilia, but it was from the Civil War era, and it's too good not to mention. One customer brought in an original photograph of the Wentz home in Gettysburg, and he hopes to get a spectacular amount for it. $15,000 to be exact. Rick admitted that he knew nothing about the people in the photograph or the significance of the house, so he of course had to make a call to someone that did. Unfortunately for the owner, it turned out not to be the Wentz house that he had believed, nor could it be proven that the home was actually a Gettysburg house at all. Rick couldn't place any particular value on it, so let the deal go. The seller later reported doing a deal at a rival pawn shop for $10,000. Was it really that valuable but Rick didn't realize? Did the other shop know something that he didn't? Or did the seller just get lucky and take the money and run? Who knows? But still, that's a lot of dough for one teeny tiny photograph, even if it was old. Civil War infantry sword.
I'm selling the sword because my wife wanted a new kitchen and my wife should get what she wants.
What better type of memento from war than a real sword that probably killed people? One gentleman brought in an 1860 light cavalry saber that supposedly belongs to Colonel Bassett, an officer that served in the 82nd Regiment Pennsylvania Volunteers. There was one issue though. The tip was broken off. William found the sword by chance by Yosemite, and while he liked it, his wife wanted a new kitchen, so it had to go. The officer went through 22 battles with that very same sword before eventually retiring with his life. William puts a hefty price tag on the item, asking Rick outright for $20,000. Rick brought in his go-to expert as he wasn't sure if it really held any value whatsoever. The expert loved it and vouched for its authenticity, so a deal could be struck. If the sword had been in better condition, it would have fetched a better price, but still not the price that William would have wanted. Instead, Rick offered $2,500, but William wasn't having any of it and walked out of the shop without a deal. Alamo Scout World War II patch.
I'm going with 80% that this is, in fact, an original Alamo Scouts patch.
80% from you, it's 99% from everybody else.
The Alamo Scouts were an elite unit of the 6th United States Army during World War II and were renowned for their butt-kicking ability. These guys managed to liberate 197 Allied prisoners, thus earning them the name Alamo to symbolize their stealth abilities. Kristen wanted to sell the patch that belongs to her grandfather so she could take her kids on holiday. She came armed with an authenticity certificate to prove that it was the real deal. Rick knew a little bit about the unit and how brutal the training was. In some cases, soldiers were marooned on desert islands and told to live off the land before being fully initiated into the company. As far as World War II patches go, this was the best of the best. Kristen wanted $6,500 for it, but Rick wasn't about to pay that much. After calling in an expert, it was verified to be 100% real, but the pawn shop didn't want to pay that much. Some harsh haggling ensued, but it was a no deal. Why? Because Rick missed an opportunity. You can't win them all, Rick, but you should have at least taken a chance on this one. We would have. WILLY'S World War II Jeep.
This is so awesome!
Rick was over the moon when he got the call to check out this item. He traveled to make the purchase of one of the world's first Jeeps. The 1944 vehicle has been fully restored to near mint condition and was a piece of history on four wheels. Willys Automobile Company started out in 1908 when John North Willys purchased the Overland Automotive Division of Standard Wheel Company. They delivered the first Jeep prototype to the U.S. Army on Veterans Day in 1940, so it's hardly surprising that this one-of-a-kind item was going to fetch some big bucks. Owner TC needed the cash to start a family and put down roots, so was begrudgingly selling it. Rick was impressed that the Jeep was in such good condition. TC wanted $25,000 for it, but Rick bargained him down to $20,000. The boys shook hands and both parties walked away happy. Not bad for a day's work, considering Rick probably sold it for twice as much and made a tidy profit. Thank you very much for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing content, and don't forget to check out one of the other two videos on your screen.